Hello viewers, you join me at Zagreb airport where I'm waiting to get on one of two planes that will take me to Los Angeles in America, where I am involved in activism work for a couple of projects, one being the Truth About the Truth documentary, which hopefully you all know about by now. But I wanted to grab a bit of time, few minutes before I get on the plane, to record an old school unedited video because I don't really have editing capability. I want to get a video out because I want to talk a little bit about a conversation I had with Jessica 2 days ago, because for the first time, and Jessica is just about to turn 5 next month, for the first time we talked about religion. We talked about her family's connection with Jehovah's Witnesses, and that was a big deal for me. I'm sure it was a big deal for her as well, but it took me by surprise because I was reading Jessica her bedtime story or saying goodnight to her. I can't remember whether there was a story. Anyway, I was saying goodnight to her in her room, and just out of nowhere she says, "Daddy, what do you do for work?" What do I do for work? Okay, how do I explain this to a 5-year-old, because she's nearly 5? How do I explain this? And I came up with this way of explaining it. Maybe it's helpful for those of you who are in a similar situation where you have young children and you struggle to figure out how to explain things. And I just said, well, because she knows where America is, she's been to America before and she sees it on films. So I said, well, there are bad men who live in America, and these bad men lie to people about their imaginary friend called Jehovah, who they say is a superhero who can do anything, who can make anything, and they tell people that in order to benefit from their bad friend, people need to follow them and believe them and do everything that they say. And because so many people give their brains to these bad men, these brains effectively become imprisoned, and these bad men have so much power that they can even stop people from loving each other. And so Daddy's job is to try and persuade people not to listen to the bad men, try and persuade people to think for themselves, to get their brains out of prison, and to persuade people to ask questions, because the way to defeat the bad men is to ask as many questions as possible. Once you ask questions, the bad men don't have any control over you. And amazingly, this way of explaining things worked, because the next day, yesterday, Jessica said, "Daddy, tell me more about the bad men." And I said, well, what do you know already? And so I asked her a few questions and she answered them all correctly. She'd remembered the story. And I said, do you want to see a picture of the bad men? Yes. So I showed her a group shot of the governing body. And that's it. She said, where are the bad men, Daddy? So I said, I'll show you. So I showed her a clip of her at Warwick, because there's a brief part in my Warwick documentary where Jessica's in the pushchair, and I said, this is where the bad men live. And I showed her some of the aerial footage of Warwick. Later the same day she asked again, where do the bad men live? And I said, well, do you remember New York? Well, if you get in a car and drive for a few hours, the bad men live next to a lake in a forest, which is true. They live next to a lake in a forest. And she seems to get it. And what was so adorable was, after I'd told her this story the first time round, her response was, because you could see she was really thinking about it, and she said, "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to fight the bad men like you do." So I said, "Well, darling, you don't have to, you know." "Yeah, but I want to." So we had a hug, and yeah, it was quite a profound thing for me. And another thing that I've had to do is as well explain that these bad men have so much control, that they have control over our family. I said, that's the reason why Daddy's daddy, your granddaddy, hasn't seen you yet, because the bad men have control of his mind and they have the power to stop him loving us. That's why you've not met him yet. And the bad men even have control over mummies, mummy and daddy, your grandma and granddad. But they don't quite have enough power to make them stop loving us. So we need to be kind to them, and we can't make them feel bad because they follow the bad men. We just have to be understanding. And she kind of understands that. That's one part of the story that I think she's genuinely struggling with, is that you have this clear good and evil situation, and two people that she cares about, who she sees every day, her grandma and granddad, they are under the control of the bad men. So that's something she's struggling with, but we'll get there. We'll get there with that. But it was quite an interesting experience for me to go through this with her. And I'm sure there will be more conversations, but I wanted to share this with you. Again, just in case there are any parents out there, I realise not every parent is fighting the bad men. I guess we all fight the bad men in different ways, don't we? It doesn't have to be through activism, it doesn't have to be through making books and videos, it can be just through resisting their power, taking their power away from them. So, little video for you there before I get on my plane. Lots of love to you all. Again, this doesn't have any fancy intro or outro, so I'm just going to have to love you and leave you, and thank you for watching.